Welcome back to 30 for 30. This is a brainchild of Coach Nash. We're putting together conversations with well-respected individuals that have inspired me throughout my career. One is a man I've never met before in person, but I followed him for years on social media, and little small inspirational clips have changed the way I coach, the way I parent, and really my whole outlook. It's kept me positive. This is Coach Derek Jones. He is the associate head coach, correct, Coach?
Yes.
Associate head coach and DB's coach for Texas Tech University. Coach, welcome, man.
Man, I really appreciate you having me on, Coach. Means a lot that you picked me out of all the people that you could have picked to do this. And I was overexcited when you reached out to me about doing this. And I think the best platforms that you can have are those that you don't structure, no blueprint, and you just have an opportunity to be yourself. And, that way I'm eager to learn something about you and, educating you on some things about myself as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Well, I guess I want to start from the beginning, Coach. I followed you way back, maybe in your second or third year. I started checking out what you did at Duke University. Can you give us a little background on how you got there and then what brought you to Texas Tech?
Yeah, I started my coaching career at the University of Mississippi, which is where I played college football. Never thought about being a coach. My coaching career was kind of appointed to me, so to speak. Tommy Tuberville was the head coach at Ole Miss my last 2 years there. And I went on to play a little bit of arena football, a little bit of Canadian football, got released from the Giants, so was kind of in that popcorn aspect of professional football, if you say, just kind of bouncing around. But, I knew was not something that I was going to do long term. My intention upon entering school was to be a lawyer. And I felt like football was my avenue to live out a dream. But at the same time, I realized firsthand that I was a 5'9" guy. And I never weighed more than 170 pounds in college, all 4 years, because I ran track as well. And I was a 400, 200 guy. So my training didn't allow me to grow a lot. I was passionate about track, so that mattered to me. But I was more of the here and now person. And I just felt like, being honest with yourself about what your probabilities of playing professional football is something that you have to do. And that's what I accepted. But, I was kind of in transition. My wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, but my wife was still back in Oxford. So I'd go back there during the off season just to work out and to be there with her. And Coach Tuberville was in the weight room one day, and I walked in because I had gotten a call from my agent the night before saying that the Dallas Cowboys wanted to bring me out. And I wanted to talk to him about it because I knew he had some connections on the Cowboys staff. I didn't really know exactly what it entailed. I didn't know if it was a tryout. I didn't know if they were going to sign me. I had no idea. But when I proposed it to him, he was on the treadmill. And I remember like yesterday, he stopped the treadmill and he just basically told me that I needed to stop chasing that dream. And he told me kind of what was going to take place in that. And he's like, this is where they bring a lot of guys out to help them get through practice, whether it be voluntary workouts, whether it be OTAs. He said, but the probability of you making a team is going to be slim. He said, I think you need to become a coach. He said, you're smart. You are a great captain. You're a great leader. You have great communication skills. He says, and there's a shortage of people like you in the profession. He said, I've got a graduate assistant job coming open next semester. You can have it. He said, what it allows you to do is to try the profession out. But most importantly, it allows you to work towards your master's or whatever else you want to do educationally. And at that exact moment when he told me that, I was a little bit dejected, because he told me that. And I still kind of had in the back of my mind maybe this one last shot at the NFL. But the other 99% of me knew that he was telling the truth. And it's my firm belief that that was God's way of telling me what I wanted to do, because I had never in my life thought about becoming a coach. And so I went and sat on it for about 24 hours, and I went back to the coach's office the next day and let him know that I wanted to take that position. And luckily for me, it was at my alma mater. And I was still fresh there, only 2 years removed, so I still had a good name there, because Coach Tuberville eventually left to go to Auburn later that semester. And they brought in David Cutcliffe. And naturally, because I had a good relationship with Pete Boone, our athletic director, who had also played college football at the University of Mississippi. And, you kind of keep that fraternity going when you share that bond. And he suggested to Coach Cutcliffe that he talk to me, and Coach Cutcliffe kept me on as a graduate assistant for him. And that was the start of my career. And from there, I was a graduate assistant for a year and a half. My first full-time on-the-field job was at Murray State University under Joe Panunzio, and I was there for 5 years. After being there for 5 years, I took a position at Middle Tennessee State. We were fired at Middle Tennessee State about 3/4 of the way through the season. I landed on my feet at the University of Tulsa in Oklahoma, which is where I met Coach Matt Wells and Coach Keith Patterson, who I'm on staff with now. We had a really good season there. Coach Steve Craigthorpe got the head job at Louisville, but was only able to take 3 of us assistants off our staff with him. And I ended up landing on my feet at University of Memphis with Tommy West, a guy who had recruited me out of high school. And then around about Christmas time that year, David Cutcliffe called me and told me that, he was going to probably take a job at Duke University. And ironically, I had about 3 other job offers on the table. But, Coach Cutcliffe had given me my very first shot. I had a lot of respect for him. So when he confirmed that he was taking the job at Duke, I was more than glad to join him. And I was at Duke University for 12 years up until this February. And just rewind, Matt Wells and myself had always stayed in contact. Coach Keith Patterson and myself had stayed in contact. Coach Patterson actually tried to hire me at 4 other universities that he worked at, during our time apart from working together. But we always kept those relationships, and simple things, when my book came out, Coach Wells was the head coach at Utah State, and he called me and he said, how can I book order some of your books? And he ordered 30-something of my books for his staff and his supporting staff at Utah State. And Keith Patterson, the same exact time, it may have been the same week, called me and told me that he wanted to purchase copies of my book for the defensive staff at Arizona State and all of his linebackers. And at that time, they were not even working together, much less all of us. But it just goes to show you how little things keep you bonded in professions like this. So when Coach Wells called me, the one thing I knew I wasn't going to do was just accept the job. My maturity level in the profession and what I expected for myself in the profession was at a point to where I wasn't chasing titles anymore. I wasn't chasing logos. It had to have been a role that I felt like fulfilled me. And with Coach Wells knowing me well enough, I think when he got here and established himself at Texas Tech, he knew that I'd be a good fit for his staff. So here we are.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Without a doubt. One thing that stood out for me from just hearing your story is the importance of relationships. As a college coach, how important is relationships to building your brand and building your business as far as recruiting and also as far as your career advancement?
I honestly think relationships and communication are the foundation of success in this business, because the thing you have to understand when you become a college coach, it's a very, very uncertain profession. It's uncertain when you do well. It's uncertain when you don't do well. And you're going to need people that know people and people that in order to keep you afloat in this profession, because it's a who you know business. And I think being able to establish and maintain consistently those relationships is key, because when you ask for something from somebody, when everybody else is asking, you sound just like them. When you make a call to somebody, when everybody else is calling, you're just another number or just somebody else that left a message. But when you've reached out to these people on a random Tuesday, Wednesday, just to say hello, how you doing? When you've taken the time to sit down and write a handwritten note, to wish guys luck or to ask them how their family's doing. If you take time to go buy that bulk pack of Christmas cards at Christmas time, send it to these people. Those are the type of things that matter. And you never know how your relationship with somebody in the coaching profession is going to come back full circle. Some of the advice I like to give to everybody is no matter who gives you a card, take advantage of that card. Put their number in your phone and text them and say, I've got you locked in, or take the time to write them a note. I don't care if it's a first-time graduate assistant and you've been in the profession for 25 years, because you never know how your relationship is going to come back around with that person. And if you're good in this profession, the thing you always want to know is you want to know people that can fill positions that you're going to be asked about. And you want to know people that can help you get a position that you're interested in. And that never stops. Even if you're a head coach that's been in the profession for 20 years, you're going to have to know graduate assistants. You're going to have to know entry-level people. You're going to have to know people you can hire with a certain salary pool. And that means that you have to keep hustling regardless of your position in maintaining and establishing relationships.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I know as a high school coach for myself, the relationships built may not ever lead to anything except for growth in the coaching fraternity and someone you can bounce ideas off of or someone you can trade film with. One thing I would like to know is, what advice do you have for the young high school coach who's just trying to make an impact where he is right now, someone who wants to grow where they're planning?
I think the best advice I can give you is to be passionate about where you are. And to elaborate on that a little bit, I think anytime we're worried about our next move, anytime we're consumed with who's noticing us, anytime we allow anything to come in and distract us from the job that we're supposed to be doing, we're not doing it as well as we can possibly do. The thing that all of us are in the profession for, the thing that all coaches are in the profession for, despite your title, despite your position, despite what level you're on, despite your salary, the thing we're all in this for outside of the professional realms of sports is we're in it for these young people. And that's what it's all about. And I think if you can focus on purely being there for the young people, everything else grows because everything else about you gets better. And people notice that. People notice when you're trying to build a false facade of who you are. But when you are who you are, that speaks volumes. And I think anytime that you just grasp the concept of why you coach and what you're accomplishing, because the best rewards that we get in coaching, nobody ever really knows about. Rings look good, championship trophies look good, bonuses are great, but there's nothing like that young man that was headed in the wrong direction that you got on the right path. There's nothing like getting those Father's Day calls of somebody that you're not their biological father, but you're the only father that they have. There's nothing like getting those baby pictures when that first baby is born. And there's nothing like getting those wedding invitations, whether you can attend those weddings or not. Those are the things that let you know that you've been impactful. And I think it goes back to your initial question. When you become passionate about those type of things, that's when your true personality comes out. And that's what people are actually attracted to.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. One quote that I can't even remember when I first heard it, but I know I was really young when I heard it. And it was, be who you needed when you were younger. And that's been my mission statement as a coach for these last 15 years. I didn't grow up in a affluent neighborhood by any means. I grew up almost in the struggle. The home life was tough, and there was coaches who filled that gap where I didn't have a father there. There were coaches that stepped in and helped me to pursue my career, that helped me get to college and helped me decide what type of husband and father I was going to be when I got older. So I know a lot of that is built within your position group. I followed the cheetah culture for a while that you've with the DBs you produce, Coach. So tell me about the family atmosphere you build within that.
The cheetah thing is very unique. I call my players cheetahs because the characteristics of a cheetah mimic the characteristics of a defensive back. If you think about the size, you think about the speed, you think about the vision, you think about being both predator and prey. There's so many similar characteristics. And cheetah is a coaching phrase that I've used that means a lot of things. And a pack of cheetahs is called a coalition. And the unique thing about cheetahs, when they hunt, male cheetahs will only hunt with their blood brothers. They won't hunt with strange cheetahs. And that's kind of what you build in a secondary. It's kind of like a fraternity. And when cheetahs hunt together, they're very, very instrumental in the assignment that they have, cutting an animal off, and they can only run for so long. So one may take a completely strange angle, knowing that the other one would flush the animal that way, and he hadn't used that energy. So I've always been fascinated by cats, and I actually watched this stuff when I was young. Most kids were watching cartoons when they little, and I was trying to watch National Geographic and reading up on a bunch of this. That's why I'm so knowledgeable about it. And that's why I was so passionate about, forming the coalition at Duke University. And for me, what it was allowing these young men to have an identity. I coined the term Cheetah U because I didn't want to claim DBU, because I didn't want these kids who were predominantly African-American to categorize themselves as just football players. And I think when you're in our positions in this profession, you have to teach guys to think outside of the box and to think long-term. But I wanted to create something that was bigger than 4 years. I wanted to create something that extended the entire time that I was there. And we were able, through social media, and through all the technology now, to be able to link up all these young men together and provide a communication and a family atmosphere amongst those guys. You know, you have different levels in there that were in school for different years, but you still have some of those guys that were there the very first year I was there, and I only had them for 1 year. But by the time I left Duke, those guys had been in the workforce for 11, 12 years. So they were able to provide advice, letters of recommendation, internships, and just guidance, you know, on a bad game, or guidance on how to apply for jobs. Just so many different things that came out of that I wanted to expand upon. And the other thing that came out of it, I've actually got several young men that played for me at Duke University that are now coaching. And I want them to call their guys cheaters, you know. I think the worst thing we can be in the world is to be selfish about something that you create that means something. You know, I don't think you're doing it for the right reason. People ask me all the time, can they use my quotes? People ask me all the time, can they call their position groups cheaters? Of course. And I'll tell you exactly what it means, because it's going to mean something different to you than it means to me. But if the results are the same, we're all doing our jobs. And it goes back to what I was telling you earlier about, you know, just being passionate about what you're doing. And I think anytime that you are that person, kids will buy into you more. The better of a bond you have with players, the more they're going to give to you on and off the field, the more they're going to want to please you. And for me, as you talked about a minute ago, my situation growing up was just the opposite, man. I had what I would term the perfect father. You know, he's still alive right now. And, you know, my dad was the only dad for a lot of my friends. My dad came to every game he could come to from the time I started playing football. You know, whether it was we playing for 55 minutes in Pop Warner football, or whether he's having to drive in his work clothes after he got off work to watch me play in middle school. And every high school game he was there. And oftentimes he was the only black father there out of the other guys that I played with. And oftentimes on Friday night in particular, when we got older, I'd drive home after hanging out a little bit after the game with 4 other guys in my car. And we'd go back there in that little room and we'd all spend the night, and we'd get up the next morning to go to team breakfast. And that's just kind of how I came up, watching my dad be that guy. And so for me, he's always been the guy that I wanted to emulate in every aspect of life, from a spiritual standpoint, from the way he taught my brother and I to be men, from how he treated my mom. You know, it's just so many lessons that I learned, and so many things I credit, you know, to my father. And I'm one of those people that are very, very lucky, because I know that coaches fill that void for a lot of people. So for me, once I did become a coach, I thought it was very important to mimic my father. Now, my father has never been a football coach, so the things that I did to mimic my father were the things that these young men need for the rest of their life. And the thing that I tell young men in recruiting is, if all I am to you as a coach, I have failed you in life, because I want to be that professor that you don't have in college. I'm going to be the best professor you have in college, because I'm going to teach you things that the classroom's not going to teach you. You know, I am a pretty good football coach, but I'm a better man. I'm a better father, because those are things I can't fail at. Those are things that I don't have a choice. Those are things that nobody can control. You know, I'm the head coach of my household. So you can never tell me that I'm not a head coach, because I'm the head coach at the most important thing I'll ever be in life. And my children have started to have children. And the thing I've come to find out is it don't stop. You know, I had to sit there with my little grandson all weekend, and all he does is ask questions. He's 7 years old. And I got to have answers, which means I have to keep researching and learn how to answer questions. I have to be observant to understand the things that he's going to be faced with in life that maybe these young men that are sitting in my meeting rooms are not faced with, because generations change, and situations change, you know. But that's one of the things that I'm equipped to do, because, again, for as long as I'm on this planet, I'm going to try to become the man that my father is. And as a result, that's going to make me a better coach. That's going to make me a better mentor. And hopefully that makes the young men that I affect better men as well.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And even using the quote I just used, he was exactly what you needed when you were younger. And that's why you're having an impact on not just your kids and grandkids, but every other young man that's in your charge. And that's a beautiful thing, Coach.
Yeah, I think it's very important, you know, in life, because you're only going to have but X amount of positive role models that you know you can put your hands on, that you can touch. I'm not talking about the guy you see on TV or the guy that you want to mimic because, you know, he's a superstar. I'm talking about a person that you have access to, that you can have a conversation with, that you can lean on for advice, or that's going to come to you and counsel you in a situation where they think you need to be better. And when we have those people, I think we have to take full advantage of it, you know, to be able to mimic the actions that they show us for what we like them for what we admire them for what we want to be like them for, because that's your education. You know, when you haven't had those things at home, I think you have to search for them other places and then try to mimic them. And like I said, there were a lot of things my father didn't teach me that I didn't know that I got from other people, but he's been the blueprint of how to be exactly what I'm going to become. Because a lot of things in life I wanted to be good at a young age, they phased out of my life. And I'm not playing football anymore. I'm not running track anymore. So I'm not worried about being good at those things anymore. But man, when I think back at the lessons I've learned from my dad, a lot of them are just coming into play. You know, I just turned 46 years old, and I'm at that point now to where, as I was telling you, I'm learning how to be a grandfather, and I'm learning how to be, you know, getting more into the spirituality thing, aspect of things, and just learning how, watching my father deal with my daughters when they don't want to come to me. I mean, it's just so much you can sit back and watch. And why don't they want to talk to me? Because dad may be a little more aggressive than granddad. You know, so you have to evolve as time change. But I've got somebody that I can learn these things from. And like I say, they don't put that in a book.
No, sir. No, sir. Absolutely. Well, Coach, man, just switching gears one more time. I have looking at your tweets and reading the positivity that radiates through each and every one of them. I can go through all of them if I needed to, and I probably wouldn't find one negative word in there. It's all uplifting and inspiring. What drives you to be so positive on a daily basis?
You know, I'm positive simply because nothing positive comes from being negative. And I think the biggest thing I've learned in that is just watching other people. You know, I tell my wife all the time, you know, I refuse to be a lot of what I see. And, you know, when you hear people complain and you hear people whine and you see people with a lot more than what you've had and they're still not happy. And you see people not satisfied that are wealthy. You see people not satisfied that are poor. There's just so much negativity around there. And when I think of how it makes me feel when I'm around it, I just don't want to be associated with it. And, you know, I just realized the one thing in life that we can control is us. We can control who we are. You can't control your circumstances. You can't control the climate. You can't control the environment. You can't control how people treat you. You can't control how people approach you. But you can control your action. You can control your reactions. And you can control your emotions to a certain point. I think if you consume yourself with being positive, it becomes a way of life. It's just like anything else. You know, you practice singing to become a great singer. You practice coaching to become a great coach. You practice playing to become a great player. You have to practice positivity to be a positive person, or else you'll be derailed. And positivity is not something that you can fake, because you have mood swings and you have, you know, people that can set you off. One of the things about me is I always tell my players, if at any point in time you see me lose my composure, you have the right to lose yours. You know, I'm going to put it out there for them, because I'm not. Because my father told me a long time ago, the moment you allow another person to make you lose your composure is the moment you give them control of you. Man, and that was strong to me, because I didn't want to let anybody have control of me. And my father always taught me, regardless of the barriers that are around you, you control who you are. And that's just one of the ways that I can control it. But I realize everybody's not like me. And I realize this may be a blessing from God that I'm like this, but I like to share it with people. And so once I started many years ago, around about 2008, putting up positive messages on Facebook, this was pre-Twitter existence, I realized how many people it was helping, you know, by the comments that I got, or by the inboxes that I got. And finally, to be honest with you, man, I never wanted to get on Twitter. My graduate assistant, Matt Guerreri, who's the defensive coordinator at Duke right now, he tried to get me on Twitter. And I'm like, man, I don't have time for that. That's just too much, because I'm a creature of habit. And when I start looking at so many social media outlets, it's like it's pulling me in too many different directions. I don't want to deal with it. And I was just content. I was happy with Facebook. You know, I could find all my cousins and classmates on there, and I could say something and be gone for the day. But he made me understand that, you know, Twitter was the way that things were headed. He made me understand that most of the prospects, the age level we were recruiting, were on there. And he actually made me a Twitter page. And as soon as I got on there, I mean, it was natural instinct just to take off and to start spreading the word that I'd been spreading on Facebook. And because the audience is a little bit different, the messages were different, but still the same me. You know, they're coming from me, and I don't practice them. I don't rehearse them. I don't really put that much thought into them. I mean, it could be something that I thought about. It could be something that happened to me. It could be something that I said the day before in practice or in one of my meetings. but generally just something I think people need to hear, whether it's about how you carry and conduct yourself on social media, whether it's about how people are going to observe you, whether you realize it or not. I think one of the things I always try to do is tell people, whether you like it or not, or whether you think it's fair or not, this is how it is. Because so many people don't tell you those things in life. And, you don't get many chances in life to make a second impression. People are observing you from afar. They want to know that you compare to the other people they're observing from afar. But a lot of people, as we talked about earlier, don't have anybody to teach them that. So what I'm trying to be is I'm trying to be a coach from afar. I'm trying to be a big brother from afar. I'm trying to be a friend from afar. I'm trying to be a mentor from afar, trying to be a father figure from afar. And, I figure if it takes me 10 minutes to put up 4 quotes in the morning, and if they can impact 4 people, it's well worth it, because I feel like God has blessed me, and I feel like our obligation when we've been blessed is to bless others.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Always be in the position. If you're given that platform, why not be a blessing? Absolutely, Coach. The last question I have for you, and it's not a content-based question at all. This is the first of its kind that I've ever done. I'm strictly an amateur guy who's stepping out of my comfort zone to create something. And so this is my 30 for 30 series. And every 30 for 30 I've ever watched has an awesome title that sums up the entire story. So if you were going to create your own 30 for 30 title, this is for the Cheetahs. What would be the title of your 30 for 30?
Oh, that's simple, man. It would be titled AP2W, always play to win.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And I see that hashtag after every motivational tweet. When I get up in the morning, have my coffee, and take a look at my phone, I see that after every tweet. Always play to win.
Yeah, always play to win has always been my motto. And it's kind of like what we were just talking about, positivity. I think if you carry that motto and you carry that mindset, regardless of what happens to you, you're going to be able to overcome. Always play to win doesn't mean that you're going to be perfect. It doesn't mean that you're going to always win, but it does mean you're going to always keep playing. Always play to win teaches you how to handle adversity. It educates you on you're going to have to deal with adversity. One of the ways to deal with adversity is to prepare yourself for it. If you're caught off guard by something completely and you thought things were going to always go great, you're going to have a hard time moving past that. But regardless of what happens, it's a mindset. It doesn't matter how much money you have. It doesn't matter if you get fired from a job. You just have to believe you're going to get another. Falling down is a part of life, but laying down is a choice in life. So when I say always play to win, it means that I'm going to always get up. And it means that I'm going to always inspire those around me or who are observing me to do the same thing. And for me, it's not an act. It's just the person that I am. And I was telling my wife not long ago, I'm born and built to deal with pressure, whatever the situation. It's like we're trying to sell a house right now, and she gets all frustrated because people come to the house and then you get a negative review on it. It's a brand new house. We didn't plan on moving. So, we just dumped a bunch of money in it. But I just smile at it and tell her it's going to be okay. The beautiful part about this is we have a house. And the beautiful part about it is we can afford to go stay somewhere else. So why would I worry about selling a house when there's so many people sleeping on the street? And, when I say stuff like that to her, she can't do anything but look at me. But I know I'm affecting her because she didn't look at it like that. And that's my wife. That's my number one partner. So I have to work on her like that because she's never been on a sports team. That's not her mentality. But my job is to do things like that for her because she's with my children a lot. And my job is to be that way in my household because I want my children to say the same things about me that you just heard me say about my father. So I have to be that way all the time. And I firmly believe no matter what you say, people pay more attention to what you do. I'm trying to get these young men in here to do more than be successful on the football field. I'm trying to get them to be successful in life. So they're observing the type of father I am, the type of person I am, the type of man I am. So when I walk in here every day, regardless of what happened in my life, I've got to be that person. I can have a bad day. We could have gotten a bunch of yards thrown on us in a football game. When I see my family, I'm smiles and hugs. I'm not depressed because I got to be daddy for the rest of my life. That football game, even though it may hurt at that moment, it's going to fade. I guarantee you, win, lose, or draw, they're going to fade off. A career is a long time, but you only have a small amount of time to touch on those impactful years as a father because your children take on wings of their own after a while. And they're going to mimic some of the things that you did, and they're going to remember some of the things that you didn't do. So I try to be on the positive side of that more so than on the negative side. So for me, I have no choice but to play to win.
Sir. Yes, sir. Man, and you just said a word. You said a mouthful right there. I can't wait to replay this in my headphones here in just a minute, just to reiterate some of the messages that you're giving us right now. But Coach, this has been your 30 for 30, and you've blessed myself. You're gonna bless our listeners when this gets released. I just can't thank you enough for your time, and I look forward to keeping in touch, Coach.
Hey, I really appreciate you having me on, Coach Nash. Thanks again.
Yes, sir.